Hello, family from NBC. Time for another Truck Talk. John 5 through 9. One man was there who had been invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. And while I'm going down the steps, another steps in before me." Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. So let's picture the scene. An old man's laying beside this pool of Bethesda. He had been sick and paralyzed for 38 years. Jesus walks by and says to him, "Would you like to get well?" Come on, Jesus. Could there be a more obvious question than this? Think about this. Every day, people have been carrying him on his mat, laying him by the pool, and hoping for a healing. Then Jesus walks up and asks if he wants to get well. Now, why in the world would he ask a question like that? Jesus asked this question because he knew that for 38 years, this man had been totally dependent on others. He lived a life of dependency, and if he's healed, then he's going to have to start showing initiative and taking personal responsibility for himself. And that's why Jesus asked him, "Would you like to get well?" Jesus has the power to completely transform this man's life. Think about that. You see, Jesus was highlighting an interesting facet of human nature, I think. Dependency on anything is incredibly addictive. So, how does this man answer Jesus' question? With the old classic victimization mindset. What does he do? He blames someone else for the fact that he's still unwell. He says something like, "Jesus, I can't get well because I have no one to help me into the pool." Because of his disability, he's blaming others and seeing himself as a victim. Jesus said, "Stand up, pick up your mat and walk." So let's break this down a little bit and see exactly what's happening. Jesus first says, "Stand up." Now, it took a lot of faith for that man who had been trapped in that paralyzed body to stand up. But guess what? He stood up. Then Jesus says, "Pick up your mat." The man had to take responsibility for himself. He couldn't depend on others carrying him anymore. But guess what? Again, the man picked up his mat. And then finally, Jesus says, "Walk." In other words, it was a command for this man to leave his former life where he had been totally dependent on others. So what happened? The man began to walk. That man left his old life where he had been so incapacitated for all those years to live a new life, all thanks to the supernatural healing of the power of Jesus Christ. So let me ask you, are you caught up in the trap of dependency? Who do you depend on? Look to Jesus. Through faith, he will give you the power to change your life. Something to meditate on today. Until next time, love you guys. Keep looking up.